York City.
Oh, New York. So after I finished with Teddy, the parties were boring. Teddy had lost his deal of funding for overhead. I just got in my truck one day and ran to New York, tried to talk to Pierre, whoever I had met during the parties and around, and I let in for free or hooked them up. And I waited for hours, and basically it was like, all right, kid, I see what I could do. And I'm like, but I got you at the parties. I could do what I got to do. And it was like, we'll see. Didn't get anything. Came back. I decided to finish my last semester because my son was coming to Delante Jr. I finished my last semester. And then right after I finished and my lease was up, I basically just called my homeboy and said, hey, I'm coming to New York. And he was like, I got a 1-bedroom studio in Jersey City. It's over a Dominican bodega and you're going to sleep on the floor. And I said, well, I'll bring an air mattress. I think they was just coming out then. And my mama gave me one. I said, I'll bring an air mattress, man. I'll make it do. So I came up, hollered at him. I left my car at my mom's house, got on the train. Father gave me a couple of bucks and I was sleeping on the floor. Basically, his foot was here and I laid this way every night and I would blow up this air mattress. I didn't know it had a hole in it. So I would blow it up when I go to bed and it would be flat by the time I wake up in the morning. And that's how I ended up coming to New York. And from there, I just would work. I think I worked for Foot Locker. At one point, I worked for a .com company. They closed. I ended up working at Foot Locker, and I just ended up like anywhere that I could do music. And it's funny how God does things because at Foot Locker, Air Force Ones was like the thing. You know what I mean? It was a big deal. People would come and buy 10 pair, 30 pair. If you was like Jay-Z and Luda, they was high. They would come buy 100 pair. And I was in the biggest Foot Locker in the country on 34th Street, right below the headquarters. So I used to run for them because I used to see them, Jay-Z around, and I would come in and Dame, and they'd be like, one day, Jay-Z's assistant, what's her name? Someone to see. I can't think of her name, but she came in and was like, Delante, what are you doing here? And I was like, working. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was embarrassed. And she was like, yo, we could sell you some shoes. So after that, I went into the back, and my boss, Eric Coleman at the time, he was like, yo, why are you hiding in the back for? I said, it's embarrassing, man. I know these people. They used to come to my parties. I've been there with Teddy and all that. And I just feel embarrassed. And he said, hey, man, does any of these people pay your bills or got the insurance on your son? I said, no. He said, if they truly about it, they going to see that you're a hard worker and you hold your head up and they going to want to help you. So I come out, and what I thought was negative turned into, all these rappers at Def Jam and Atlantic and all these people coming to me. And this when the 2A's was out. I was like, hey, I need 200 pair of Air Force Ones. And my commissions was off the chain because I didn't have to do anything. I come out, they're 2A me on the way. I would go and tape off this section of the storeroom, like these are mine. And, and I started making money enough to get the authentic football jerseys, the basketball jerseys for me to go after work to the offices and play records. And, they had to listen if they wanted the Air Force Ones hook up because everybody didn't have them in abundance. And that's kind of how, I think my first placement in New York was a song called I Wonder. Gene Peoples produced it. I started managing him, and it got signed by Ron, I forgot Ron's last name. Sorry, Ron, forgive me. But Ron signed it for an artist they had on J Records that just started. And that was my first placement. I ran into Troy Taylor by Jerry Vines managed Genuine. And I went by the studio. I knew him in DC. He knew me as a kid. I went in and Troy was in there and we was listening to Stingy. Young Jonte Austin was in there with glasses, all skinny and crazy. And Troy was like, yeah, I'm not with the characters no more. And I had went by that studio after one of them Foot Locker nights and met him. He was kind of flashy and stuff. And then he was like, I need a manager. And I was like, oh, I manage. He was like, manage me. And I was like, huh? I was like, I work at Foot Locker. And he was like, so? And I was like, all right. And that's how the Troy Taylor Delante thing started.
Wow.
Right.
What are some tips you can give to aspiring managers? Because there are a lot of homeboy managers out that, aren't always kind of knowledgeable on some of the things that you need to be successful. Mm-hmm. So what's some advice you can give?
It's funny. The homeboy manager thing, I think, has changed dramatically since, years ago. I think with the evolution of the internet and being able to Google anything you want to know at this point with the database, a lot of the homeboy managers are kind of knowledgeable now because they can pretty much Google and find out who runs this, who runs that. Where when we were coming up, you had to pretty much know somebody and get a connect or get a Rolodex or get a two-way contact. Like, send me the contact. Don't tell I don't tell you got it from it. I remember a whole bunch of contacts linked one time, all top people, everybody pin, and you could just hit Puffy, and Puffy be like, who this? And you could just kind of make things happen. So I think now you could Google and say, well, like for me, the kids that I meet, now, even as a homeboy manager, the people who call me who I know is unexperienced, they'll call and they'll be prepared. Straight street dudes like, yo, you used to manage Trey, you did this, K. Michelle, you did this, you worked for that, I got Mario, you did this. So now they're not really just homeboys no more. They really can connect the dots from the internet and start asking questions. You could probably say in Siri right now, who is such and such and such, and she will probably tell you what you want to know. So the advice I could say is stay on top of that, stay Googling. Like every day I get up and go to certain websites and certain trade spots just to see what moves are being made. It's the wild, wild west for these managers too, because the internet is so big. So it's kind of like, who's to say the homeboy manager ain't right? Because they might be standing next to their boy that they told him to put it on YouTube and put up their stuff. And now, he looked like a genius. You know what I mean? When it's just him Googling.